right, the public hearing for IGDB biogas Lamerland ended up having to be canceled. I will turn it over to the CDC to go further into it.
Good evening, everybody. First on the agenda is an update on that project. Last month, you had adopted the preliminary resolution for the ERA designation and abatement request. Assessor Vanderay was reviewing the documents that I had received and passed along to all of you, her and the auditor, and noticed a discrepancy between them and the drawings that the building inspector had received in terms of parcel numbers. Indiana code does give the fiscal body some latitude to make modifications between the preliminary and confirmatory resolutions. But I conferred with Ken, Holly, Steve McKinney with the DLGF, and we agreed that it was really pushing the bounds of that latitude to consider a parcel that had not been properly advertised. So what I have for your consideration this evening is Resolution 2024-03. And by adopting this resolution, you would be accomplishing the following. You would be rescheduling the meeting to your hearing to your April meeting, amending the preliminary resolution to include the proper parcel numbers, and requiring LD Monterey Biogas LLC to reimburse the county the $28 or so for the cost of re-advertising before you go ahead and hold that public hearing and consider that confirmatory resolution.
All right, well, is there any discussion on this?
I have some discussion. If it's only, what does qualify? It's only one employee that's going to be employed there.
On the paper.
So what is the, what criteria for this? It should be more than one employee, am I correct?
I mean, and maybe Nathan or even Kevin will have more input or something to add, but, unfortunately, in the past, we have not had any real rules or things put in place for what, whether it's one employee or 10 employees or not, from what I'm aware of. And so it pretty much, and that's one of the things that, the CDC is doing now by us giving them the directive to be able to reorganize, is to be able to put some of these rules in place and get more of a formal process which is a good thing for doing abatements and all, because in the past, as for the number of people, maybe even Holly has something to add there, but I don't know that there was any.
I do. Usually every year we try to post an abatement meeting, and Steve McKinney graciously comes in and presents. And really, if you really read it, abatements are there for jobs coming to the community. That's primarily what I've always been taught and all of the assessor trainings I've been to, and that is part of the presentation. So,
But and I'll just ask the question, is there a number? I mean, does it say a minimum of this? It's, one job would theoretically qualify.
I've not seen a number.
Right.
It just, that's one of the things that is to do, is to bring jobs up, I believe.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you start doing this, you're opening the gate, because, there's a lot of farm operations out here that require, or that have multiple employees, and why aren't they able to have an agent?
Actually, under recent legislation, and I will admit, I don't know all of the details of that legislation from a couple of years ago, agricultural investments are more easily eligible for abatements than they were in the past. As Holly indicated, there is no set number of jobs required for an abatement. The state gives the fiscal body latitude to look at what it calls the benefits, job creation, investment, addition to net assessed value in the community, and other circumstances that, from a case-by-case basis, the fiscal body may consider. As Ken indicated, as I'll discuss in a little bit, that is part of the working draft of the proposed rules for tax abatements that the EDC and I have been working on, giving point values based on the number of jobs created, as well as the wages to be paid by those jobs and the investment, so that in the future, when we bring something to you or potentially the Winnemac Town Council for an abatement request, while you will have some latitude to deviate from that if you can justify it, you will have a score that says, all right, this project scored a 47. Based on the rubric, it should get a 6-year abatement. That's something that we are working right now, and I'll be reviewing with you in a little bit. I lost sort of a moment ago. I think the term the Indiana Code uses is the totality of benefits. So number of jobs, the wages those jobs will pay, and the amount of investment. And of course, that one is only as its initial benefit is reduced by the abatement. So there's a little bit of built-in tension in the abatement law, but it's those combinations of things. And then it may be other harder to objectively score, but beneficial things that it might cause for the community. Like if somebody were going to open up a widget factory and 4 of our manufacturers would be able to buy widgets locally instead of having to ship them from across the country overseas, you might look favorably upon that because it is improving the local manufacturing economy.
Well, it's the point where they said, I always feel like the county gets the horse ahead of the cart. And when I say that, we didn't know the numbers the other last month, at all. It was around about $3 million. Well, it said several million, so I'm going to assume several million is 3 million.
Oh, it's more than twice that.
Okay. Well, that would cost, the way it shows, it would be at 3 million. It would be around a $30,000 hit that the county would take on taxes. Okay, and we have very few taxpayers out here in this county. I mean, that's carrying the load, and I think we need to stop and think about. Everybody needs to pull a little weight. Okay, and so that's why I'm voicing this. And I mean, as far as that goes, we could have. I imagine you could have 20 or so farmers next month here proposing getting the tax abatement because they can put that kind of money out and they have more paid employees that live in the county. So that's all I'm going to say.
And Tim, I think that's very fair considerations. That's why the EDC and I have spent so much time on these proposed rules so that going forward, you're able to weigh all of those issues instead of how we've always done it in the past.
And I'm not for pushing off new stuff to come to the county. I'm not saying that, that we don't want to run off business.
Right.
Okay.
No, I agree. It is a balance. It's a balance every fiscal. So, I mean, for instance, as I would have reported tonight if the public meeting were being held, and will report again last month, the EDC, based on the current form of the application scoring rubric, which is still subject to change from your input in the EDCs, this project would qualify for a 10-year abatement. But based on the conversation that the EDC and I had with the project owner, the EDC's recommendation is a 7-year phased-in abatement instead of 10.
Yeah, and I was just trying to answer the question on the number of people. That's the reason we want these kind of discussions, because it brings, different opinions and different lights to the table, and more things for folks to think about. Is there any other discussion, or anybody have any other opinions, or?
The project owner or the developer that you and I talked about, is there any way that this could have been submitted earlier and ran through for like a review before it entered the newspaper?
I mean,
So we could have continued with the hearing rather than having to backtrack and pick back up again.
I don't know, because it just happens to be that I hadn't seen some of the documents that building and zoning received, and Holly had received both my documents and those. And that's where we caught the discrepancy.
Well,
There's no one there to proofread it. It doesn't go to Kevin or anybody to.
It was submitted to us, so nobody locally would have known that. It was after Holly caught that I confirmed with the company that they had included the wrong parcel number on the documents they gave to me.
and I think that's, one of the reasons behind having some process behind doing this. It's a shame we didn't do it earlier. We're getting there and it's getting done, because that way, you're correct. That way these things can be bought beforehand and then resolved before they ever come in front of the board, and we have to kind of look like we're, trying to play catch up a little bit. But unfortunately, I will say, I was involved in some of the conversations and all, and my input back to him was that I didn't believe anything, knowing that there was something wrong and that maybe there could be some kind of a shift that would not be fair to the board or to the taxpayers to have something come in front of us that was not proper. And so that's the reason they're repaying to have it advertised if it gets passed to be advertised, because we need to correct document, not something that isn't correct in front of it. Hopefully I would truly believe from this exercise, we will become better. We will learn from this so that it's not happen. I mean, it was just an address mistake. They're still doing the same job, work, and the same things will be installed, getting the description.
Somebody want to take care of that.
I seen Chris look out the door. Any other discussion? Well, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Don't get a motion, then it will die from a lack of a motion. Going once? Twice? All right, dies from a lack of a motion.
I will hurt.
It's okay. I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank the most. Wanted to give you a handful of updates on stuff I've got going on at the CDC. A lot of this will be regurgitation of what the commissioners received last week. I'm going to start with broadband. At least 5 providers submitted Next Level Connections Round 4 grant applications to the state's Office of Community and Rural Affairs for Pulaski County projects. These projects range from a relatively small segments of just Monroe Township to swaths of 5 or 6 township in one project, with a mix of buried fiber, aerial fiber, and fiber-backed wireless options proposed. Okra is currently conducting its first round review, and the second round is expected to begin in early April, with an awards announcement projected for early June. With me is Broadband Task Force Chair Kurt Dickey, and I'm going to let him dive in a little bit deeper on broadband progress programming for you tonight.
Yeah, thanks. So mainly I'm here to update you, answer any questions you have. Sort of the history of the whole, my involvement came through the Community Foundation, sponsoring initiatives that were the result of surveys that we sent around in the county about. And so that's how I got involved, creating a task force. Lieutenant Governor's Office put out, and I think I shared with a few of you, the steps for broadband success within, in Indiana. And the first one was creating a task force for a group. So we've done that. And if you look through the 10 that they've listed, becoming a broadband ready, there's a lot of detail, and I can share this with everyone. But we've become a broadband ready community, have some smart rural communities as well in the counties, townships, towns. We've also requested to do a broadband feasibility study. This is one that is interesting, right? Because when we took this on as a task force, right, which we're not elected, we're volunteers, right? We're not paid to do this. There was no plan in the county. It was a bunch of providers going around and saying, hey, we're expanding our footprint here, we're going to do it over here, and here. So one of the things that I think is a good idea is to do a study and say, hey, where's it bad? Well, we know where it's bad, right? Listen to people tell us it's bad here. But the good part of these plans that the providers submitted is they essentially go in and do part of that. So we kind of hit the brake on that until we see where these grants that are being asked for funding for, where they land. There's 2 rounds, as Nathan said, next level connections, I think there's roughly $8 million. Then there's the federal BEAD program where Indiana's given $800 million. So it's worth waiting so we, are good stewards of taxpayers. Additionally, Leanne Wright from the Community Foundation, the USDA grant, we asked for $50,000 from the USDA. Fortunately, we did not get awarded that money. We just got notified. Brief us why they didn't select us in March. So I'll share that information with you. I find it really hard to believe that we can classification. I'll let you know what to say. The fourth on the list is to engage with providers to encourage investment. That's, task force. Hey, we're a great community to invest in. Number one, because you're going to get a lot of money building projects here. It's not the only angle that we have. We've encouraged investment, setting up shops here. Some of these providers don't have a footprint yet in Indiana. And we encourage them to, hey, build it here, build your facility here, or however you're going to do it. Build a warehouse here to send your service trucks out, things like that. So that it's not just encouraging investment in broadband, it's encouraging economic development. Because as they come from the west and the south and the east, they need to have support staff. Some of them already have a footprint that include us, but there's an opportunity. And of course, they ask for an investment share from the areas that they're invested in. Some are very lofty numbers. County that probably not happen in one swoop, but as you chip away at these projects, it just gives people more coverage. It gives more option for the other providers. Showing incentives and broadband expansion is the fifth. How would it benefit your company? Rochester Telephone has already done some Major investment in the Monterey area, laying fiber in the ground right now. And while that's not all lit up yet, their intention is coming from the east, west, hopefully cover some desperately needed areas around the state park and increasing the adoption rate of broadband in our communities, getting people to power themselves, remote work, education, healthcare. I mean, all the things broadband, right? It's big during COVID, and people are returning some more to work. But in our area, remote work would be a big draw. A lot of people move to this area because they like rural life, but they still want to be connected in some way to do their jobs, or if they have a place that they visit on the weekends, able to activity. Compiling an inventory of public assets and public resources. We've done a good bit of this, identifying where fiber could be telephone poles or would it need to be buried underground, pros and cons of that, and working with the county highway to help some of the broadband. Having our people that are in our county work well with the county so that if they cut a tile, they fix it quickly. If they bury something, they bury it at a depth that's predictable. Eighth is GIS mapping and I think the federal government's done a very good job of that for our county, and I think also our GIS that the county has for some of our property plats and things like that is pretty good. It's not perfect, but good enough at this point. Identifying funding sources, we're kind of in that phase now, and engaging with partners to increase the local workforce. So, that one is, once they get the funding, then they have to deploy resources. Local resources, permanent, temporary, until we get the projects. Know that obviously the light stream, has local resources, not just, we already have some of that. So those are the 10 things, right? And I think, we're, as the broadband consultant that we hired, the commissioners agreed to hire last year, who's agreed no cost to extend for 6 months until these projects are done. I think, his word to me was, I don't know that there's anybody in the state that's gotten 5 submissions. We may be the only one that has 5. If not, we're at least in the top 5. So that's great, but it also means we have terrible broadband. Flip side. So that's our focus right now. And it's a lot of fits and starts, right? It's like, it goes along for a couple of months and you have a meeting here. All of a sudden, everybody wants a support statement from the county and things like that. But that's just the nature of people trying to figure out where they're going to put their chips on a project, right? I'm going to go think that I can make money, invest in the county and get money from the state or the federal government. And all of these providers are eyeballing that $800 million. That's why they picked these 5 projects. So they have 2 shots at it. Again, if they get the money, it's not a guarantee they'll build. So that's when we need to really encourage them to come here first. So it's not 7 years. So that's to be determined, and maybe I'll be back and update on that. But we really do want them to have incentives to come here first, whatever those are. Hard to say. So, like I said, when that day comes, I'll work with Nathan and update you all. What is the ask? There is an ask. Sometimes there isn't. With that, if there's any questions, happy to answer them. Where we're at.
Oh, I got
Okay.
This has kind of become a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, considering the fact that I work remotely now and I live in the state park and I have basically no internet. I mean, for we're working remotely. And I know as the county has given money to help support this program. But when I listen to the conversations, it sounds like there's a lot of, well, we studied and we may, might not, we could. And I guess I'll be honest with you, I'm to the point of, I want to win. Are they going to start lighting it up? When's it going to happen? Because we talk about a county, Tim was just alluding to the fact of, $30,000 is a lot of money to this county. It is. We gave $30,000. We're still,
30,000.
well, for part of the studies and stuff to enhance the county and all. And I'm not saying necessarily to you, but
Yeah.
we've invested money into trying to move these forward. And it's just getting a little disheartening because, and I know everybody's working hard and everybody's trying it, but like I said, I'm getting more to the point of, I want to know when somebody's going to tell me it's coming down my road,
So let,
to your point, related either directly or indirectly to broadband, there have been two different funding commitments. There's been committed and expended funds to the community foundation generally for the aspirations and action programming that has gone to help support their efforts across the board. The money that the commissioners and council specifically appropriated for broadband, that has not been expended.
Oh,
That's what Kurt was getting at when he said that because of some way that some of the timing has worked out with the state grant rounds. We held off last year on spending that money because of the grant application that the foundation had submitted. And by the time they finally got around to telling us that we hadn't been funded, it was closing in on NLC time again. And so now we're going to wait to see which of these projects might get funded, because that will vastly change the amount of money and time we need to put into a broadband plan. Because if we've got, say, 80% of the county covered by funded projects, that is a much smaller scope for assessing where and how to bring more broadband. So that money is still sitting in the ARPA account unexpended.
yeah.
my apologies for.
No, it's okay. So I'm as frustrated as you are, right? So the RDOF dollars, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. So what happened, the provider that did the stalking horse bid to win broadband under counter, LTD, won a large swath. Oh, by the way, it was the swaths that have the most crappy coverage, including the state part. The FCC said this company is not certified to get these dollars because they can't do it. They were a small company that said, we're going to go get $8 billion to cover America and build our small little shop out of Minnesota. And eventually the government said, no, you're not. And so what happened was all that money that they had gobbled up a bunch of our county because they were going to put up fixed wireless to do it. They said, we're not going to let you do that. That all got released. So that whole process of releasing that, now it became eligible for these other dollars. So now we've got credible companies that are coming in, which again, like I said, it's great that we're getting. It's terrible because that we're in this situation is a direct result of the LTD and the RDOF falling through. The way the funding works, as my understanding is, if you get funding from the federal government, you cannot get state funding. It's one or the other. So they're all trying to figure out where's the best money to get these projects. So look, I've been trying to get fiber up to the state park for a couple of years. It was one of the first things. So I'm like, there's fiber right along 35. I went up and I talked to Broken Arrow and I was like, what do you got? And I was canvassing myself and asking him, and I talked to Vernon and, I was talking to RTC. So it's going to get covered by RTC. They're coming that way. The question is, are we also going to get wireless from the west side over that'll cover it as well? The company that's doing the wireless coming in from the west, they just deployed some new technology. I'll save you the details, but it's better, so they can use less towers to get just as fast coverage and meet the federal government requirement. So that means they can do it for less money. So now they're incentivized to come in and say, hey, we think we can put a tower in Francisville and one up here that not only covers your county, but gets a little bit of, possibly Stark County or Jasper County. And so I can empathize with you. I'm on Starlink. I don't have any project that's going to be funded where I live for the next 5 years. It's terrible. So I have a Starlink. It's expensive. It works pretty well, but my option was DSL. You may not even have that. Yeah. So
That's me.
I get it. There are some fixed wireless options. 4-way has an option, some that are out there. And there is a website, and I encourage all residents to go look at the federal government website. You can go put your address in. It'll tell you exactly the options you have. And there's, so you can see, is it Starlink? The deal is that some of these low Earth orbit offerings like Starlink and some that are going to come online do not qualify for federal government funding. So that means that even if you had it, it's not going to disqualify your address from getting coverage from some of these investments that are in the ground or so. But, from my perspective, I don't want to see us spend money and waste money on something that's not going to get a result. But I don't see a way other than asking local government for millions of dollars to be able to get it any faster. And it sucks, but that's just kind of where we're at. Trying to make sure that we're first in the line for our bowl to be food, pennies from heaven and whatever. And it's teed up really nicely, but it's going to be a while. And these projects are not deployed overnight. They take time to engineer. I wish it were different. That's why I'm trying to push hard on these. We have done everything we can as a county with everything but money to get them to come here. That's good. They love that. It means they're not worried about people that aren't sign up for service. Yeah, that's another. Making sure that they build it, people actually sign up and use it. So that's TBD. Studies on that. Federal dollars based on E-rate funding. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for letting me present. Thanks, Nate.
Moving right along. It would be premature to provide any details at this time, but working with a landowner in the western part of the county who has property that meets the needs of a company working with the state's Economic Development Corporation, I've submitted their property for consideration for a relatively small project that could potentially create benefits for this landowner directly while providing some new opportunities for the local ag sector. I know that the property has been accepted by IADC, but I don't have a timeline on the project owner's process for eliminating properties and determining where they want to take a site visit. A couple of quick updates on housing. The IHCDA intends to announce the 2 projects that will be funded as part of this year's special LITKey allocation on the 25th of April. They received 4 submissions. Our Willow Creek Villas project by Sullivan Development here in Winnemac, 1 project proposed for Stark County, 2 developments proposed for Dale, a small town down in Spencer County. I have received all of the marketing and partnership materials from the Housing Resource Hub regarding the Hoosier Homes Down Payment Assistance Program. Once I've had the opportunity to disseminate all that information and sort of onboard local bankers, real estate agents, and builders, we'll be able to start spreading the word throughout the community for potential participants to investigate whether it would be a good fit for them. And as I've previously relayed, that down payment assistance program, it is open both to first-time homeowners and to existing homeowners who are maybe have a growing family and looking to get more square footage. And there are different tiers of assistance available based on whether they're, I think, public servant like a teacher, maybe police officer, firefighter, a veteran. And there's a reasonably decent swath of the community that would qualify under the household income guidelines that they use. So within the next couple of months, you should start seeing social media, maybe some print media, I don't know about radios, but some information about that being disseminated so that local homeowners and would-be homeowners can look into that program. Kevin and I recently worked through the proposed pre-development agreement that would need to be executed by the town of Winnemac, the redevelopment commission, and the hub regarding the proposed county farm project. And the hub's attorney will be reporting on his review of the changes shortly, after which time I will present it to the town's attorney. Assuming that Kevin and the town's attorney are both good with that, we'll be able to start filling the steering committee and doing some of the pre-development work on that proposed project. Side note to that, as part of the state's Ready 2.0 funding allocation application, I did submit the infrastructure cost for that project as part of Northwest Indiana's proposal, and I'll dive into that a little bit. Mostly telling you all of this so that it gets more public attention. The Lafayette-based Matchbox co-working studio is again offering their free WIN-funded Regional Accelerator Entrepreneurship Training Program in Pulaski County. Sessions will be on Thursday evenings beginning on the 21st of March. And interested local small business owners or would-be entrepreneurs can contact my office for more information or visit Matchbox's website directly to register. And then I mentioned Ready. We submitted that project for consideration. We also submitted the Panhandle Pathway extension from the town up to the state park and into Stark County as a regional quality of life project. And forgive me, I don't know the details, but I believe that Leanne and the foundation have submitted a project related to childcare. I've also learned that even though regional proposals have already been submitted to the IEDC for their first round review to decide how much money will be allocated, any local projects we may still want to have considered can be submitted to the Northwest Indiana Forums portal through the 29th of March to be included in the review once they know how much money will be allocated to Northwest Indiana. And finally, our annual Pulaski County Economic Development Summit will be on the 23rd of April, most likely at the Knights of Columbus Hall here in Winnemac. I will get more information out once I've got a few more things cemented, but it does look like we will be here at the 23rd of April at the Knights Hall. Any question on CDC updates before I dive into this abatement related stuff? Okay, now there's a lot here. It's already 20 till 8. I'm going to go through this quickly. Please stop me if you have questions or comments at this time. I just want to make sure that it gets in front of you to be available for discussion while you're all in the same room. And you will see a page somewhere in your packets that is marked Rules-1 at the top where I'm starting. So over the last few weeks, I've updated you via email that we've been working on this, working with the Economic Development Commission on this draft proposal. Included in the packets are, what I said, the rules. So I think we've got 5 pages of rules and guidelines for the application process, along with a draft scoring rubric and then an actual application document. On page 1, it mostly covers an overview of the process, references to the state's enabling statute, other provisions. The only real question of substance on this first page that needs to be hashed out that you will eventually be asked to adopt is what the application fee, if any, for tax abatement requests going forward should be. We've never assessed one in the past. Honestly, I've been the only one who has been involved in that process, except for with the solar projects where we put together a larger committee. We now have the Economic Development Commission. What I think, at least as a starting point for conversation, might make sense is a 2-tiered fee schedule, similar to what the Plan Commission and BZA do, where if somebody requesting a tax abatement is able to get on an EDC agenda for a meeting where we have this outstanding business to address, they would be responsible for half of the cost of that meeting pay, So if you end up establishing $120 a meeting for that meeting pay, $360 for the three of them, the applicant would pay a fee of $180. If we have to schedule a special meeting of the EDC where we have no other business, they would pay the full cost because we've called them for a special meeting. That's an opening suggestion on where you want to start with that. Any questions before we move on to pages 2 and 3 this time? All right, so pages 2 and 3 of the rules and pages 1 and 2, I'm sorry, of the scoring spreadsheet you will see halfway through. Current proposal on the table is for a 100-point base scale scoring abatements. Up to 40 points available for up to job investment and 60 points available for project investment and 60 points available between average project wage and jobs created, retained, or both, with the scores for the average project wage and job average averaged together. Under project investment, current proposal is for every $50,000 of investment, the application would earn 2/3 of a point, with investment rounded upward or downward from the nearest $25,000 increment. Projects worth less than $25,000 would receive no points in this category. With a 40-point cap, this section would max out at $3 million in investment, and any project value beyond that would get half bonus point, whether it's $3,400,000 or $10 million. So that a project like the digester project doesn't have a huge capex and only one job and have its score weighted really favorably just because of how much capex is involved. The average project wage section of the scoring, for every 5% above the minimum increase above the minimum wage, would earn 1.5 points, but that same upward or downward rounding from the nearest 2.5% increment. This average project wage would be either new jobs, retained jobs, or a combination. Starting point would be 202.5% of the minimum wage, which would currently put it at $14.68 per hour. So if a project were only paying an average wage of $12 an hour, it would score no points under this category or subcategory. Subcategory maxes out at 500% of the minimum wage, currently $36.25 an hour. Again, if it paid $40 an hour on average, it would just get an extra half point bonus point rather than accumulating more points beyond that. Jobs created or retained. Every job created or retained by the project would earn 1.5 points, maxed out at 40 jobs created, retained, or both. 1 bonus point for any jobs above that. So you end up with a base score, like I said, of 100 points. A unicorn project with at least $3 million in investment, higher average wage than 36.25 and more than 40 jobs would score 102 points out of 100. Any questions, comments, thoughts on this proposed scoring rubric? All right. There is an opportunity under the current proposal for a project to score some bonus points and for a project to have points deducted. There are up to beyond that, those 2 points for exceeding the caps and the base score, up to 25 project bonus points, with up to 5 points each coming from aligning with a targeted industry sector in our strategic plan. So I gave that example of a company that wanted to build a widget factory that could supply local employers and reduce some of their supply chain issues. That would align with one of the key targeted sectors in our strategic plan, as may be amended from time to time. Otherwise aligning with our strategic plan. So maybe it's a small furniture maker who is manufacturing, but is doing it small enough that they could fit in a downtown building without and be compliant with the zoning and not create any problems with that. They might invest in a building that is not seen a lot of love in a long time, bring new assessed value to downtown, new traffic to downtown. They might align with the downtown revitalization strategic plan target. So then there would also be up to 10 points available for using local suppliers and contractors during construction. That targeted sector bonus point would not apply to what our strategic plan calls low workforce impact investments, as our base scoring criteria already adjust job creation as well as capital investment. The vacant building structure bonus point would not apply to abatements requested under the vacant building deduction, because that's the entire point of that abatement option. And let's say Joe Schmo says he's going to use all local labor and going to buy all of his building materials from Healy's, and he comes back and is using out of town contractors, suppliers, or both, within permissible work by the law, and you know that you always have a compliance review each year. You could reduce that score. You could take away those bonus points after the fact, which might change the long-term nature of the abatement if the applicant doesn't comply with the promises made. Likewise, they could lose up to, let me make sure that's not a typo. Up to 35 points in deductions, if with up to 5 points each, if they require county highway to make road improvements, or it could be the Winnemac Town Street Department if it were an in-town project. Same goes for if a co-op or the town municipal electric had to make improvements, sewer improvements, anything sort of like that, that would create additional financial burden on a local municipality or an electrical co-op, could lose 1 to 5 points unless they were able to reimburse that utility for the entire cost incurred. So that, yes, we want to encourage them, but if county highway is going to get stuck doing a lot of extra work, they might not get as much of a deduction because we don't want to create that burden for county highway. Any questions about bonus points and deductions? Okay. Pages 4 and 5 of the rules document, where we have our draft proposal for the actual tax abatement phase-in schedule. So normal abatements, it's often, it's 100% the first year, 90 the second year, 80 the second year, or third year, and so on. These rules establish that 10% decline each year as the standard baseline. And then as of right now, we've got a 7-point range. So anything below 7 points total would not get any abatement. Between 7.01 and 14 would get a 1-year deduction, all the way up to needing 70 points for a 10-year abatement. And then after that is where it gets a little bit hairy and where there is still some work to be done, and where I'm hoping that if not tonight, that between now and the next time the EDC meets, any of you want to share any thoughts that you have. As of right now, with that 77 cap to get a maximum to get a 10-year abatement, anything above 77 points could qualify the project for an additional year at 100%. So a 80-point score to get 100% in years 1 and 2, and then start that 90, 80, 70 sliding scale in year 3. You know what? And there's an obvious tension there, as I indicated earlier. The more abatement you give, the later you delay the impact of the new assessed value in the community. At the same time, if you can score a really big project, you want to do what you can to make sure you land it. That is where I am looking for a lot of guidance in there. 77 points, I realize, seems like a really weird point for minimum, rather than saying 100 points get you where you get a full abatement. We had started at that, but I looked back into a lot of our older projects and found that we have had a lot of projects that they've been 3 jobs at a time, 5 jobs at a time, and that's been a lot for the individual companies. So the EDC and I tried to find a middle ground that would make it harder to get the 10 years, but wouldn't make it so impossible that we would start scaring investment away. As it is, the digester project with a CapEx over $5 million, as Tim acknowledged, only 1 job, but a very good salary for Pulaski County, that would only barely qualify for the 10% or the 10-year abatement under this 77-point scale as it is. So while it seems like a really weird point, in order to give enough weight to the job creation and the wages, that is where we landed for now as a way to make it harder to get a 10-year abatement, but not make it so hard that nobody ever wants to make these investments in the future. So like I said, if you don't have any input on that, you need to digest it, that's fine. But any input, any further probing questions any of you may have about dealing with scores above that 77 points or readjusting to make it harder to get beyond a 10-year, I'm open to that. This is where the EDC and I landed at this point.
Any questions or discussion on that from Nathan?
And I will note that while, like I said, 77 points, between 70 and 77 would, as a base score, get that 10-year standard abatement. We have language included in here that gives the EDC and the council leeway to deviate from the should-be score or the should-be schedule as long as you have justification for it. So, as I indicated, we talked at our EDC meeting with the project owner for about 30 minutes. And when we asked some questions about cash flow positivity and how long it would actually take them to be making money, EDC said, yes, technically they qualify for a much higher score, but we don't think that a 10-year abatement is necessary, and that's why that they had recommended a 7-year. So there is some leeway built into that, in addition to the potential bonus points and deductions, to let you give a bigger or smaller deduction based on criteria that you may find that is relevant beyond the scoring outline. Any questions before I dive into the actual application document?
Question?
All right. So you will see at the top of the page, app-1. Page 1, that is mostly basics and regurgitation of what's on the front page of the rules. Departmental spaces here to mark the date we received it, who received it, they paid the fee, that sort of thing. And then the last paragraph before the signature line is some acknowledgments that says, just because I'm submitting this application doesn't mean an abatement is guaranteed. I have to get it approved. I have to follow annual compliance. We acknowledge that there are scoring criteria, but the EDC and council have leeway to deviate as they deem appropriate, and we certify that all this information is true and complete. Pages 2 and 3 are general basic information questions about the nature of the request, the applicant and the property. Is it for an ERA designation only? Is it for ERA and tax abatement? Is it just tax abatement because they're already in our ERA in place? Is it personal property, real property, vacant building, new? What kind of new equipment is it? Address, contact information, stuff like that. Pages 4 through 6 ask a more detailed question. Okay, you're putting in new manufacturing equipment. Tell us what it is, what the cost is. Some of this would get censored before it came to public light because state law requires cost to be confidential, but we would use that internally as we're calculating assessed value, looking at CapEx. Project timeline questions on page 5 about construction. What's the timeline? How many local contractors and employees are going to use? What are their expected wages? Are you going to use locally supplied materials? Zoning. What's the current zoning? Do you need to get anything rezoned, plat vacated, etc.? Those answers probably wouldn't affect the abatement request itself, but might affect the timeline. Council might not want to hear that request until Plan Commission and commissioners have approved a rezoning or the BZA's approved a special exception, that sort of thing. Middle of page 6 and page 7 really kind of dig into the criteria used to score projects and to determine whether an ERA is justified. It asks the need for incentive. So it says basically, if you don't get this incentive, will you still be able to do the project? Please explain your answer, justify that. Ask the employment questions. How many permanent jobs? Do you know how many you expect to be local? What are the anticipated average wages? Jobs retained, same question. With the additional question, please explain why this project is necessary for these jobs to be retained. That is something that I think probably is sort of overlooked, and you just assume, you take it for granted. Oh, they say they're going to retain X jobs. Well, why is it? If you don't upgrade this equipment, are you no longer going to be able to produce widgets, and you're going to have to shut down that line and people will lose their jobs? So we're going to ask them to explain how they can justify saying that this project and this tax abatement will save 20 jobs. Page 13 is the question about, as the Indiana Code says, undesirability for normal development. What about the project, about the property itself actually qualifies for ERA designation, regardless of the specific project and project needs? And includes two passages from the governing statute that quote how the state code broadly defines undesirability for normal development. That's from Indiana 611-1211. Pages 8 and 9 address questions pertaining to the metrics for assigning bonus points and deductions. Are you going to use some land that has been unused or underutilized? Are you going to rehab a structure that is dilapidated and not contributing to the local economy and tax base? Does it align with our strategic plan? Are there going to be public facilities improvements involved? Are there any downstream benefits to this project that aren't easily measured by any of the questions we've asked? And that one is less about the bonus points and more about that latitude you have. So that widget example I said, again, are we going to see other companies able to not just cut their supply chain, but they're going to be able to go out and find new customers that will bring even more revenue into Pulaski County because of this project? Will there be any potential adverse environmental impacts that could be created by this project? And finally, how long after completion will this project, this component of your process, be cash flow positive? Covered a lot of ground. There's a lot to chew there. Please take these back, review. Let me know if you have questions, concerns, thoughts, opinions, anything right now before we move on and I finish up the very last part of my report and get on with the meeting. Right. But like I said, please, the EDC and I want the council's input now rather than having them adopt recommendations, taking it to you and finding out that you don't like it. Like to be as efficient with this process as possible and avoid asking them to meet more than necessary. Last part of my report, courthouse project. Notice for bids in last week's journal and this week's journal. Ton and Blank is disseminating documents to potential subcontractors. In case anyone is interested in joining us, the pre-bid walkthroughs are scheduled for Wednesday of this week. General trades are at 10 o'clock a.m. and MEP contractors at 1:30 p.m. We've had some concerns about the labor pool and subcontractor availability in northern Indiana, given a handful of sizable projects underway or being planned, especially in LaPorte County. So Ton and Blank is extending the area in which they are soliciting to include target markets that they don't usually focus on, like Lafayette and Indianapolis. We had a final pre-bid meeting last Monday, largely feel that the budget is down to where it needs to be. We did have some concerns with the cost of the proposed HVAC upgrades. Brent Smith with J&K here in town was on the call with us, and our architects and MEP consultants are reviewing his suggestions and working with him to make adjustments that will end up in an addendum to the bidding instructions. And thank you for your time tonight.
Any other questions for Nathan?
I just want to thank you. Nathan, there's a lot of work done for that application. I'll read it over, but it's a lot of work.
When we put together that enabling ordinance last year, I put that language in that said the EDC is required to use a scoring sheet of criteria going forward. There it is. Thank you.
All right, Sheriff?
Recently, it was discovered that
matrix, it stops at 19.99 years, so anybody with 20 years or above isn't included in our matrix. I know all the other departments are, so I'm here tonight to ask the council to reinstate that. 20-year matrix for my department is very rare. We do have one individual that will make that this year, so I'm asking the council if they would reinstate that. I think it was just an oversight. 20-year increments is all.
Yeah, because it was originally
It was, yes.
in the past matrix.
It was originally on there, and it was an oversight, and all the other departments have the 20
Yeah.
years. This goes originally, I think it's 4 increments, this would make it 5, 15 years to 19.99, this stops there, when it originally was on, so yes, you're correct.
Any, all right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second to reinstate the 20-year increment into the sheriff's longevity form. Any further discussion?
So 20+ years, at what rate? I mean, I'm confused. I don't have a problem with the shit you said, I just need to know. Because I have to.
The,
I think it would involve, it only involved like a 3% increase at that increment, is what it was.
Is that what we're looking at? Is that what the council wants? 20+ years?
That's what it is with the other departments, I believe.
It is, I think in your matrix though, there are some positions that are 2.5% increments and some are 3%. I don't think it's across the board. It was on there before.
But last year when all the matrix was redone,
I know
it was
it's
left on.
and changed it. I just don't think I can go back and look at last year's and just add that here. I don't know, maybe I can.
It's been several years, I think, since the 20%. I think it was removed, whether intentionally or not, when EMS and sheriffs were put on a slightly different schedule than the rest of the departments and they had that first raise earlier. I think that is when the 20% disappeared because I don't think EMS had the 20% tier before this year either.
I guess I'm just not, it's not entirely clear to me what you're wanting.
Can you look and see how it was on the previous, when it was on the
And then bring it back and then we will go on it. Sure.
How it stands now is, like I said earlier, there's 4 tiers. Goes up to 19.99, and the other awesome departments goes up to 20 plus, and there's 6 tiers for them. All I'm asking is to throw 5 tiers for us, and only us only, so if you need to revisit that, I'd like to get that 20-year,
Is that just,
20 plus years for that one.
is that just on one, for one department? Is everybody else got it?
You know, it's the sheriff's department, or it's the correctional, it's the dispatcher, it's the officers.
everybody in the sheriff's department.
Everybody has 20 years there, but
I think.
we will have some people come up to that 20-year increment, yes.
For instance,
So I'm looking at another line in there that's 20+ years, like what,
so that is maybe 93 is the cap on sergeants right now, so sergeant would be 96. Patrolman would be 92, cook would be 66.
so every one of them's gonna be different.
Yeah, they're all, yes, the sheriff's offices, matrix is a lot.
It depends upon what rate they increment through the matrix.
So something's going to actually put together and we're going to have to look at it and adopt it once it's been put together.
Well, Laura's right. You're gonna have to, a 20-year for a sergeant would be different than a 20-year for a correctional officer, for a dispatcher, for a regular road officer. She's exactly right. It's gonna have to be looked at there. So, however we need to work out the numbers, we can do that.
Yeah,
So, if you wanna give, I don't know if you can give it okay for the 20 years, we'll do that. I understand what she's saying.
yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of reinstating the 20-year, but to get the number in, yeah, that would need to be looked at.
Okay, so can we revisit this once we have all the numbers?
I don't know what they
I think we just add it to like that percentage for what it's already set up as, 2%.
Well, Laura's saying that we need to know for the first like, if a correctional officer is different than like for yours.
But if they go by the matrix way set up, if they just go by the first information, it would change.
I don't know what you're showing.
So current matrix
The sergeant, for instance, 0 to 2 years, 84% of the chief deputies applicant, or chief deputies. 3 to 8 years, 87%, 9 to 14, 90%, 15 plus, 93%. So it'd be like 15 to 20, 93%, 20 plus, 96%. The structure, the increments are there. It would probably be easier just to have it in writing for the next meeting. I think we can all get on the same page. I think if we can just put it in writing, it'll be a lot easier to make sense.
I mean, if we want to make a motion to agree to reinstate the 20-year increment, we can do that. And then at the next meeting, approve what that wage would be. That would be-
Here, it's 3% for a sergeant, and it's 2% for a jail commander, 2% for sergeant, jail sergeant, 2% for dispatcher. He's got,
I don't listen to the current version, but just be adding another tier.
Right.
For each one, and right now it's established, whether it's 3 or 2%.
Well, that was, I guess that's where I'm looking at. I mean, if the percentages are already established for them, yeah, I mean, well, they're already established because we have a matrix now. So the percentages are already established. Yeah, yeah. But if you're adding another line, right, if all the sergeants increment up by 2%, and let's say the cook increments up by 3%, all you're doing is adding another line, and it would increment by that percentage. Everybody's going to increment that's a sergeant. It's going to be another line. It's going to be 3%. Matron's going to be 3%. Jail commander, there'll be another line, but it'll go up by 2. So instead of 86, it'll be 88. Jail sergeant, 73 will be 75. I guess that seems, I mean, to me, seems pretty cut and dry as to what we need to do. So, I mean, it's always up to a motion as to whether we approve it, but like I said, the percentages are already on in this is 2024 salary matrix. So, I mean, wouldn't you agree? What is it? No, I'm, yeah, right. Yeah, but it would,
Just add a tier based on the percentage you already have on the 2024 matrix. Same incremental.
right, at the same incremental increase.
Add a tier based on the percentage of what is per job, so.
I'll second your motion.
Thanks.
All right, we have a motion and a second to add a 20-year tier incrementing up at the percentages by sergeant, matron, jail commander, jail sergeant, dispatcher, patrolman, cook, jail assistant command, jail officer, dispatch, as shown on the current 2024 salary matrix for the sheriff's department. Any further discussion?
And then the next meeting will approve it once it comes back.
So that motion's not approved.
But, yeah, I guess that's,
After the 5th tier's in, so she knows exactly what's going on.
What they're saying, Brad, is it's gonna be 3% off these numbers, whatever that.
yeah, it's going to be, it's the same thing for each one of these. Sergeant is 3%, matron is 3%, jail commander is 3% or 2%. So it's just adding another tier on at 2%. So what you're asking is you want to see something that actually shows the 75% and what that 75% number would be. Okay, I'm just asking. Yeah.
Who has that Excel sheet?
Brad,
Brad has it, okay. Brad will circulate, right? All right.
So then we'll table it till next meeting.
We still have a motion and a second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second on the floor. We had Brad's input. Is there any other discussion? All right. right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, passes. And then Laura will bring back the finalized sheet with the numbers on it. Yeah. Yeah. So it's passed. Want to hand that back to? All right. Health Department?
Hi.
Oh.
Do we need to hire a health nurse? Been without one since December of 2023. We're in dire need of a nurse. Okay, we have a great applicant. He's more than qualified, lots of years experience, has his master's degree. He works here in Pulaski County. He runs the ER department on the weekends. We'd be honored if he could work for us in our department. And with his previous job, he has, like I said, experience, qualifications. We need him to be able to start work and implement lots of strategies to improve public health in Pulaski County. He deserves to earn a higher wage than what our matrix currently is. And we'd like to pay him at the rate we paid our previous county health nurse. The funds are already there, so we're not asking for more money in our budget. We're just asking that he start out at a higher wage.
Tell us what the wages are.
What?
Sure, everybody wants to know that. What's the higher wage?
Hey, higher wage would be $32.51 an hour.
Based on 35 hours?
35 hours.
And that is what past health nurse was making. She resigned.
What's the experience like? How many years experience does he have?
Been a nurse
For 12 years. Actually, has went to school to be a nurse practitioner. He's just, while we were interviewing him, he was already thinking out of the box, telling us what he would like to do as far as partnering with the county, to offer more public health services, which we need, with this HFI money we got, that we opted into the county. We have to offer these programs, and we have to do these core services. If we don't, we can't even think about opting in next year. And if we do opt in next year, we'll get over $300,000. 60% of what we do in the health department is the nursing part. 40% is vital records and environmental. So it's a big job,
How many, I don't know, maybe you already answered, how many candidates did you have?
We had
8 people apply. We set up 4 interviews, and we had several calls, and then they asked about the pay. They weren't interested. They asked me if we had wiggle room. Depends on how much.
During your process of looking for a health nurse, did you do any checking to find out what local doctors, hospitals, local nurses of that?
the average ER
Supervisor on weekends, the average, and, surrounding counties, about $37, $38 a month.
So the starting rate, I'm looking at a matrix here, would be 2964, and you're asking for 32 something, because you're paid when she left.
32.51. That's on, yeah.
And you have that, that's in your budget now, right? Because you would have had it for him.
I did double check that the numbers, starting at 29.4 to 34.42 do fit into the research that was done for the average wages in the surrounding area for health nurses and all. So, at any rate in there, a person would fall in that. Just depends. Whether you look at experience, time served.
I make a motion with our nurse that, the 34, what is it, 3251?
3251.
I'll say.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? All right, passes.
Thank you. I have another question here real quick. I was not aware, I was not in on the budget for last year, okay? And we don't have any money for part-time people, like when we need somebody to come in to answer the phones when someone and I are out of the office. We don't have any money in this fund. So I would like to be able to transfer $3,000. That's in 1161, and that's our SB4 fund to go into. We have $12,000 in there, and I would like 3,000 of that to go from miscellaneous services to part-time.
I do have a little bit of that could be problematic because have you filled out the paperwork for transfer and stuff and turned that into the auditor's office and all? Now, I mean, it's always the board's wish. It's not my wishes. But I can see, I don't want us to get into a habit of where I think that can become problematic. I don't mean no disrespect, but I think for paperwork's sake, keeping Laura in the loop, the board in the loop and all, it works better if we can get the paperwork submitted first.
That's my question. SB4 has lots of rules, so can you use
Yeah.
that money to pay a random part-time person?
We don't. No. We don't have any money in our part-time.
No, I understand that, but Senate Bill 4, the money is allocated for certain things, like we're told what we have to use it on, correct?
Yes.
So
But
can
we
you use it
didn't-
on a part-time person?
Yes, we can, but we didn't put that money. We didn't make a fund for a
I understand
part-time
what you're
person,
saying.
yeah.
I'm just making sure you can allocate SB4 money for a person.
Yes, we can.
But I think that's part of the reason
Because
that,
it's still within the same fund number. We just need
but I think that kind of goes back to the point at hand of, if it gets to her, she has more time, then she can look at it and say, if there is something that can't be utilized, she catches that stuff for us. Thank you. And, that way we don't put into something. So if it can be, then, paperwork submitted and we can then address it at our next meeting. I would think would be the best. It's like I said, it's the board's wishes, but
no, we have, well,
Has this person already done work for you?
yes,
All right, so that is going to delay the pay,
yeah.
because I can't pay unless you transfer money. I don't care, we can delay it, we can hold off, but she doesn't get paid until we transfer.
I think if there's no line item for a part-time person and we bring somebody in to work part-time before the money's there, problematic, So unfortunately she'll be delayed. I don't see any other way around it. Sorry. But like I said, it's the board's wishes. That would be my thought.
That's fine.
No, I
And I just wanted to.
no,
They're paid.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I understand. I don't want somebody not getting paid for work they did, but I would say until the funds get transferred and stuff, utilize that person, I would probably not have them working the funds.
And, you know, this was all before me.
Yeah, I know you,
Should have been,
yeah,
we should have noticed that and we did not. And we'll rather just put money where it was supposed to go.
I understand. I apologize for the
That's no
confusion.
problem.
We'll work through it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a transfer, 3,000 from EMS training to materials to uniforms. We have we have two additionals that need to be advertised. Highway, 400,000 to equipment. They're looking at 2 trucks. And Kim Building, 50,700. The PMH for the building project. That's the money that we obligated to them for the, I think it's still an HVAC system that they're paying on. We'll get to the additional here in a minute. So I'll any discussion on the transfers and the additionals that need advertised? I'll entertain a motion to approve them. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right. All right, we have the CDC's additionals that have been advertised, 140,300 to professional services and the 12,750,000 to the courthouse project. Any discussion? Questions for Mr. Orger?
I contacted some of the commissioners about, it has been so long since the first bid was to either build a new building or to renovate the old. And it's been over 2 years, and we really need to look at what a new building would be today. Because I really think there'd be a considerable savings. And I think we need to do that. And they're talking about it, but, so we need to at least get that, a quote.
I know, I guess just for the record, Nathan has the numbers of what's been spent so far that wouldn't be reimbursed. Could you please just let the board know what?
So first, to Tim's point, I have reached out at Commissioner McClure's request to Chief Industries out of Rensselaer. I'm waiting on a cost estimate from them. However, Mike remembered this after I learned it and told him, they sell through dealers. So they can only give me the price for the shell, and then we will have to go to several subs to see where that price was. So that is underway. After Tim had first reached out to me, I also spoke with Ton and Blank. I said, you know, we've had you do some pricing estimates for us for alternatives a few times in the past, most recently in early 2021. Could you run some numbers for me again? And the short of what they said is that we would save, if we built the same square footage, what they called a respectable civic building, but not nearly as grand as the courthouse, we might save about $1.5 million. But that would, of course, not account for the money to which you just alluded that we have already spent, that we would not be able to get reimbursed for work for a different project. So that would be about the same. Still, like I said, still waiting for Chief to give me some pricing so we can look at other options. But yeah, in advance of today's meeting, I did go back through all of the budget records for the last few years. And including claims submitted this year, we have expended $1,240,248.27 on everything from architects to legal counsel to financial consultants, document scanning to movers, to exploratory excavation of the courthouse wall. And of that 1.24 million, 1.125 million would be lost operational revenues that would not be reimbursable. Another 115,000 are costs we would incur regardless of the project, movers, IT for the East Annex for temporary location, that sort of thing. So we would be looking at about $1.125 million in spilled milk, so to speak, plus the somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 outside of the scope of this project that the county previously expended on the new elevator and some roof stabilization in the attic of the house. Ultimately, the seven of you have to make the decision about how you want to proceed. As I have relayed to a couple of people during these conversations, given that when the bids came in over in November, we did not put brakes on the process now, and we have incurred additional costs for redesign, and we're going to incur costs for the construction manager. It seems to me that while I am happy to help looking at new costs, shouldn't be making any decisions about stopping this project till we see how the next bids come in, since we have put it out for bid. If we can't get under budget the second time, I think it calls for a serious reconsideration of our options. But we have spent 1.2 million on this project, and that doesn't include my time. That doesn't include time that assessor, the treasurer, the sheriff, Sheila, Jeff, Maurice, others have spent in dozens of committee meetings. I would be afraid to put a number to the number of hours I have put into this project now. But ultimately, it comes down to the question of how much you want to lose out of operational income after we have worked so hard the last few years to stabilize the county's finances.
When you talked about the other option, and it might be, $1.5 million less, does that include all the construction costs and everything stuff, or is that?
So the rough estimate from Ton and Blank, that was all in. So that was design, construction, flooring, wall, everything. That was everything. 1 to 2 million less, plus adding back in all of the costs that we've expended and wouldn't get back in to be close to breaking even. That's not to say, like I suggested, a chief building or some other steel building wouldn't be less costly. We just don't have those numbers put together yet.
I guess this is, food for thought. We have a 125-year-old building that's been neglected, not been taken care of properly, that's still standing and still there and still resalvageable. I would be curious to know what the longevity of no offense, but a chief building would be compared to what we have standing now.
I don't know about chief specifically. The little bit of research I've done suggests on average about 75 years for a steel building. There are things that can be done on the chief that would reduce that. There are things that can be done to increase that closer to 100. But what I've found online suggests on average about 75-year lifespan.
I think we should like to see the bids come in. That's set for Wednesday, the pre-bid, right?
Right.
Once the bids come in.
The 8th of April, whatever that Monday is.
Just wait until the 8th of April.
And I mean, like I said last month, like I said, you could have postponed the advertisement till this meeting. If we do it on the 8th of April, it might push the meeting back, the project back a few weeks. But if the bids come in, until the construction company has actually dived into all the specifics, we will only have a rough sense of where they ended, but we will have enough of a rough sense to say, yes, you're comfortable approving it. That can wait. On the other hand, my 140,000, that can't wait. I've got a negative balance. But the courthouse, the 12.7, that can wait 1 month if you want to hold off and wait to see how those bids come. And I don't think unless you hold off another month until Ton and Blank dives in and calculates everything to a fine point, I don't think it'll have much of an impact on the project.
I'll make the motion to approve the additional $140,000 for professional service and table the $12.75 million courthouse project.
It's $140,300. You just taken it off of $140,000.
Yeah.
The additional, amount of additional. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I do have, I guess, one question on mine is, you're saying table it till next meeting after the bids come in, or it's tabled, period?
No.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to approve the 140,300 from professional services. We will table till after the bids come in, our next meeting, the 12,750,000 for the courthouse project. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those that disapprove? All right, passes. We have approved and signed the 2/12/2024 regular meeting minutes. No, I don't have them. Okay, that is tabled. We have the 2023 pay 2024 encumbered claims that Laura sent out. Everybody see them? I'll let Laura give a 30-second explanation on them.
So these are 2023 claims that the invoices were not received until after the last pay in 2023. So it paid it in 2024, but it allows us to pay these from the 2023 budget. The total of everything is $132,972.64.
Any discussion on the encumbered?
Which it didn't go over the budget for 23's budget.
No, I checked everything. They have to have money, they have to have money to put it in the 2023 budget.
Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion to allow the pay of the 2023-2024 encumbrance. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, passes. Is there any, I know there was a meeting on the meeting pay and so forth. Is there any discussion or anything on your guys' meeting and what was determined?
Okay, Jeff, Mike, Ryder, you wanna go over the meeting?
I don't even remember it now. I have the paper here though. But we all, us three met at Tankersley's office, and they were very accommodating to us. And there's a lot of rules on what you can pay people, and it all came up, and we hashed out. It's basically $120 a meeting.
Minus aviation.
Minus aviation, see? You're getting back to the thing. And then we got this discussion on how much it cost the taxpayer, and we discovered how much that was. I can't remember what that was. Then I got to thinking, well, the ditch, I think those ditch board meetings, I think they come out of the ditch fund. Do you know, Laura, do they come out of the general fund or they come out of?
You're talking about the drainage board?
Yeah.
They come out of
The drainage board pays those board meetings.
the ditch does?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good. So it'd make a little bit less.
And then we changed the election board here.
Yeah.
So on non-election years, election board, this is just a suggestion, so. On non, it was $1,000.
Mike took it from me.
There you go. Yeah.
You didn't change the amount, you changed the,
Just the way it's structured,
just so
so
that
on
you guys make
non-election,
more on election years and less on.
non-election years.
Yeah.
So on non-election years, they get $500. On election years, they get,
$1,750.
there you go.
So you should have all gotten an email.
Yeah.
Which has all the idea was to, we took all the law that applies to each board and put that on a sheet for that board. So just to use health as another example, so it's kind of unusual. But, took each board and then created a sheet with guidance on each one because each statute is slightly different. So we put the whole statute right there on the sheet for the board to read. If they want to reference the law, then we gave some guidance in bold that said, if you're working part of a day, you can get paid for part of a day. Or sometimes it says a fraction of a day. We put that on that sheet. And then we just put a spot for each month for whoever's the board president or to make an indication of when people worked, whether it was a full day, part day, and so they can just put it for each month, and at the end of the year, they will sign it and certify that and submit that to Laura. The date we left blank because I haven't talked to Laura about what would be the ideal date. I guess the ideal date would be in time for her to make it payable on the last pay of that they generate for the county for that year. And then each board will be paid annually at the end of the year. And it won't matter if somebody's, replaced halfway through, they'll get paid for whatever they did, from January to June, or, at the end of the year.
That's not the way I understood it.
It isn't, what you understand.
I understood that it was to pay twice a year, once in June and once in December.
That was the election board.
That's just one year.
You want to do it twice a year, you do it twice a year.
Doesn't make any difference to me.
Okay, I just thought it'd be
You
easier.
would count for one.
Just thought it'd be easier to do it once a year for all the other boards. But you are right. The only one that gets paid twice a year right now under this proposal is the clerk she gets paid the same every year to run the election board. And she gets paid twice a year. But otherwise, everybody gets paid once a year.
So does that change with Joe's change?
No, you didn't change it. Changed, maybe slightly increased it, maybe very little. Otherwise, it's the same, she gets paid twice a year. Regardless, I know you get it the same.
Yeah, it's the same money, just split in half in June and
So what I suggested is this resolution I included in that to pass that this year to take care of 2024. And then when you guys go through your budget at the end of the summer and in the fall there, figure out what you want to pay in 2025. We'll keep it the same, that's fine. And then Nathan and I have circulated a very long email now that, about adding to the matrix rules, updating them, and we can include this easily into that. You're just basically going to set the board pay every year during your budgeting process. It wouldn't take long. Look at the board, look at this spreadsheets that we have, go through the board, decide what you want to pay them, and you're done for the year. Keep the same, keep the same. Otherwise, you would take it off the increases that you give, like.
the 3%, whatever.
That's where you ended up with, paying somebody $83.22 per meeting, which was kind of a pain for the workforce.
So the meetings, they must attend. Is that correct?
Correct.
All of them, yes, that's why they have to not only attend, and the board president's got to certify that they attended or did some other work, because the statute says you gotta pay them if they do other work for the board. So I don't know what that would be exactly, but some boards might have somebody have to travel to a conference or something. They would get paid for that, same rate.
And then, I guess, Kevin made a comment there, and I don't know whether that was part of it or not, but you said something about if it was when it's added in and changed that these numbers would be looked at each budget hearing, but are they expected to still fall under the 3%?
I would say no, but that's up to you guys. You can do what you want, but
Yeah,
it seems like I wouldn't do that. I would just look at it each year and, after 2 years, you think it's not enough, you raise it $10 a meeting. I mean, you don't have to increase this by a percentage. It just makes things complicated. Right now, it's.
Yeah, if
Pick
it's
a
been
round
adjusted
number.
for 20 years, I think it's 20 years from now, we can look at it.
Do that too. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
no, I just, didn't know what the group had decided or thought about on that. I mean, I think just looking at it every year and making increase instead of doing the percentage, because it's not the same as quote a cost of living. It's not an income paying. It's, it's income, but it isn't. It's not the same as paying people a livelihood living
You're not on there to make money, you're on there to
serve.
So did we decide whether this pay goes through payroll or whether it's like 1099 goes through our claims?
What hasn't been in the past?
Everybody gets paid through payroll except for one board, and I think that's the code Peter Bowen. Is that not correct, Colin? Peter Bowen gets paid through our claims, right?
I don't know why. I have no idea. You could certainly 1099 and everything, but I think they'd rather get 1099. I would
It
think.
doesn't matter to me.
I would
That's
think they will.
this is a council decision.
It's a slight advantage to go through payroll, but get happy if I could, and you get your half your Medicaid. But, I mean, these numbers are not big. So I don't think that.
Any other discussions on the meeting pay? I'll entertain a motion to approve, or is there more questions that need to be answered? I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented, resolution and the pay scale.
You approve the resolution that adopts the claim forms? That's what I.
Resolution 2024-04.
Well, we'll need to adopt the resolution, then we'll need to adopt the pay scale. Well,
Do we have money in our budget to do this year? Do we have money in the budget to do this year?
If they don't, they'll have to come and ask you for more.
The resolution adopts the.
adopts the form that has the pay scale on
Every single board.
board.
And basically, everybody's getting paid 120 a meeting. Which is a significant increase, but like Mike said, I don't think it's looked at for 50 years.
20
years, that's what I said, sorry. I didn't mean to add the numbers.
20 years that we raised the fine.
Okay, so are we looking for a motion to adopt the resolution and the board pay, or?
Well, it's actually incorporated into the resolution. I wasn't reading it quite right. I thought it needed both, but
The resolution is to adopt the forms for this year, and then anticipation is that 2025, by 2025, you'll have amended your
handbook,
handbook and your
matrix.
matrix rules, and then it'll be just part of those.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution.
All right, we have a motion. And do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Passed.
I don't know what the last day would be, put that in there on each sheet, what, when you submit it, so it gets on the last bit. And whether they, do you guys want to make a decision about whether you're going to 1099 them or W2?
What's easier for you, Glenn?
Yeah, I guess that's where it comes down to me. I mean, I'm really, yeah, I mean, this whole process, I mean, stems from the fact of trying to make it easier on the,
It's kind of ridiculous that when one board gets paid for our claims, everybody else gets paid for the day.
When you say claims, does that mean they're 1099?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, since we're trying to make it.
Yeah.
more, I mean, whatever, one way or the other, I feel like we should be.
Hey, Holly,
Holly,
is it okay if they get payroll for that P to O board?
Yes, that's fine.
There's our answer.
easier to change one to payroll than to change all the others to claims, so,
I just will need to know how that process works, but I can get with Laura.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, is there, any other discussion on the, matrix payroll discussion?
The only thing is, did we talk about part-time? Part-time pay, did anybody?
I don't think that has, you guys have come up with any resolution on the part-time.
The resolution we talked about it was in the email.
Right.
Put in the email, the conversation we had was, coming up with some sort of categories, which Nathan already kind of came up with some for his suggested changes to the, matrix rules, categorizing certain groups of, positions, and then establishing a hourly rate for that position rather than uniform. Every part-time person makes the same exact amount across the entire county. So that was about as far as that discussion went, I think.
I think if we can hold to, or come up with something that falls into them categories, it'll make it much simpler than building a whole new set of categories.
Colleen sent you guys like a sheet.
Yeah.
Through, like, you can go put your thoughts down, put down an amount you think is appropriate, and bring it back to another board meeting.
Right.
And hash it out.
You say Colleen said something about that?
That's what I said, I don't know, I think that's right, yeah.
It's the email that came from the service at Tank Law email, when I wrote the 10 pages in response to.
And there was, yeah. And I think I think it is time now to, revisit the matrix rules and get them hashed out and all, and, we've made adjustments through reclassification of, our, through our matrix and all, and, the amendments that are been laying to the side, that's all in the back, and, it's getting kind of nasty. So I think I'm more than willing to work with Colleen and Kevin to try and clear that up along with,
I think
Anybody
our
else?
discussion
No.
there was more, if you're a deputy, you get paid what a first-year deputy gets, because we don't have to give you insurance or benefits or anything. If you're EMT, you get paid what a hired on EMT makes, or paramedic, or recycling worker, or anything, secretary, you get paid, that's what our discussion was, but we never really hashed it out.
I think we realized how much we were spending.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about $500,000 increases.
So thought maybe, my thought was, budget time, we need to see if we have any money left.
We have somewhere around 80 to 100 part-time employees, so giving them some of those raises would be $10 an hour raises.
yeah, that,
But I thought we would control that by what they had in their budget, so just because you raise that, I think the people that are in charge of the departments, they're gonna be the ones that run out money real quick, so they would have to, just because we approve it, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's $500,000 going.
Don't we have a lot of fixed part-time positions, but we have people that are working 20 hours a week, no matter what, or 18 or whatever. Is that
You're right, I was thinking more like
Is that
a deputy or EMT.
yeah, like a fill-in, I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah, you're
you'd
right.
have to figure out who, I don't know those numbers off the top of my head.
Temporary part-time.
Right.
Right.
So like an EMT, and also we got another shift. There's certain positions in this county are just part-time, they work the same hours a week.
no, that's why it's good though to go through this process and look at the numbers and everything, because, even when we were doing the wage adjustments and all, you get a real sticker shock when you start adding everything up and you realize what things come out to at the end of the day. So it's not, it's not as easy as, the good old days where you just come in and said, we're gonna change it to this and we'll figure it out later. I mean, now we're figuring it out ahead of time, so we don't catch ourselves later. So that's a great process, the way it should be done. All right, there's, good work. Thank you guys. We'll keep working out the rest of it and we'll get there for all the employees. Anything else from the board? Any comments? Anything from the board? Anything we want to share? Any other things that are going on that's important? All right, I'll turn it over to public comment. Any public comment? All right, if there's no public comment, we'll adjourn our meeting for 3/11/2024. The next commissioners meeting is 3/18/2024. The next council meeting is 4/08/2024, and the next joint session is 4/8/2024. Thank you.